And welcome back to another episode of Chaotic Good Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Kate.
And I'm your co-host, Nate. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. I'd like to welcome everybody, and I know y'all know that Kate and I are both huge movie buffs. We love,
Mm-hmm.
we love film, we love TV. Um, hence our review channel. And I happen to work at least partially in the industry myself. So luckily, we have for you a very special guest. He is a writer, an actor. He is a stunt actor. He is a producer. He is a stunt coordinator, and he is one of my closest friends. I'd like to introduce Gary Choi.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for
being on and
coming
helping us
on.
today.
Yeah, this is exciting.
Mhm.
I don't know a whole lot about you. I was able to kind of look at your IMDb a little bit. I know that you're friends with Nate, but if there's anything that you want to tell me or tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself, that'd be great.
Sure. I sort of stumbled into stunt work via martial arts. So I sort of went to more of a little unconventional way. Been doing that, wow, since I was probably 11 in Hong Kong. And just things started taking off from there. Then I had a, brief pause in a moment and just because you hit high school age, you think you know the way of the world, you think, no one can tell you what to do and everything else.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Boy, the reality check was a pretty hard and pretty humbling, and college kicked in, and then you're like, oh my God, I want to get back into it. I can't get back in. I want to get back to it. And then you let life just sort of like take over in a way that you didn't really want or really know it was going to take over.
Mhm.
And then before I knew it, I would have one or two students when I had my kung fu school start asking me about stunt work because they realized they had done some deep diving digging on me and realized that I had a skill set and they wanted me to teach them. And after I wish I was joking, after months of them begging me, I mean, imagine every
Mhm.
single you walk in and then, well, hey, can you teach me some now? Hey, can you teach me some now? It was literally months of that before I was just broken. I'm like, fine, I will teach you the basics of stunts, and that's it. Yeah, that didn't work out too well in my favor there, did it? And
Yeah, that wasn't it, was it?
no, 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 no. It really wasn't. He was very persistent, and he did get a lot of work, and you know, and surprisingly, this line of work has afforded me some, a bit more stability than, especially with the pandemic. I mean, that
Mm,
pandemic really, hurt a lot of industries, and fortunately, film work was one of the ones that we were able to make work, even if we had to do it online or digitally.
That's
cool.
true. And running the school during the pandemic was, I remember us trying to do the streaming online with everybody. Man, that was tough. Nobody really advanced very quickly that way.
No one advanced, but no one also had the motivation because like running a school, it's a culture. Everyone wants to get together, everyone wants to be there with friends, and then you take away that part, and it's just not the same.
Yeah, it can get a little bit lonely feeling like you're kind of adrift on your own. And
Yep.
that doesn't really help with training so much. Even if you are motivated, you don't have anyone there to help correct any um,
Yep.
in,
So yeah,
inconsistencies in the form.
that's more or less how I got started. Was mainly through the martial arts field. Did a little bit of stuff in Hong Kong. Did a lot of stuff here. Whoa, geez, one of my first ones back in the U.S. was Johnny Depp. What was that name of that movie? Lone Ranger.
That's
Oh,
right.
Yeah, that was actually in Colorado, actually. So that was one of the first things that sort of brought me back into the film industry. Was that that was a that and that's also where I sort of got more of an education on the difference between Western and Eastern, the ways of doing business in this industry because it's just so different.
okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
But what would be one of the major differences between the two?
Skill level, safety, communication styles, it's very different. So like in Hong Kong, everyone is a skilled martial artist. So coming up with choreo on the fly is very easy, very flowing, and that's where you get some of these like really cool takes. Or you do like the filming style they do in there, which is they'll make 4 or 5 moves at a time. So you have one guy, he was like, "Hey, I want to try this move," and they'll film it, and then I'm like, "Cool, cool, cool. Okay, what's the next angle? What's the next?" And so the fight's almost organic. Versus here in the West, you don't have people who are that trained, sadly. So you have to have more rehearsal time, more procedures, more just more of everything,
Hmm.
and it's very slow, so slow,
Yeah.
but it
Yep.
does make for a beautiful product.
Yeah, and I can attest to helping train a few actors for some of their fight scenes with you as well. That some actors just don't know what they're doing with even a prop weapon in their hand, and it can take a while just to get the basics down for them.
Yeah, the amount of people who never thrown a punch in their life is
It's
surprisingly very
crazy.
high.
I have to agree with you on that one.
I might fall into that category.
Yeah, but see, that's okay because you're not trying to advertise to the whole world that you're Johnny Badass. I'm talking about guys.
Right.
I'm talking about like people, come on to set and say, "Yeah, I know what I'm doing," and I'm like, "All right, make a fist," and they just can't. But that's this industry. You don't have to know 100% of everything. You just gotta know enough of everything.
Or maybe at least a willingness to learn.
That's probably the best way to go about it. You gotta have that willingness to learn.
Absolutely. And real quick, so we have an idea of like where you started for film in the US. Can you tell us what your first film in Hong Kong was when you were a kid?
Jeez. The first film, I don't even actually remember the title of that. I don't remember the title, but I can tell you how it went. And boy, that was so, this is my first time on set. My teacher had dropped me off, and I'm 10, 11 years old. I'm star-eyed, I walk
Mhm.
as I've never seen a set in my mind, this big, people are running around, they're doing things, and I'm just looking around. I had no idea. And while I was looking, I didn't realize they were already hooking me up, putting me, dressing me, doing things they needed. But I'm a kid. I'm just starstruck, just completely star. And I just remember someone guiding me to my spot, and then I'm still like, oh my god, oh my god, this is happening. This is so cool. And then I hear in the background, okay, 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 準備，冇錯，開始, action. I look over and in my mind, this guy is like giant. This guy is like easily 10 feet tall, running at me, and at full speed. And I'm just going, what? Oh my god! So fight or flight kicks in. So I'm on my in fight position, and next thing I know, he jumps in the air. So now he's like in my mind, 10 feet tall. He's not flying in the air, coming straight at me with a foot, and I'm just thinking, oh god, oh god, oh god, as this foot is in my mind this big. I'm just thinking, and next thing I realize is his foot is about this far away from hitting me in the chest, but I hadn't realized they had put a vest on me, rigged me the whole thing up, legs and everything, and because I was so sorry, I didn't even realize they had done that, and they had put a cable on me, a tensile steel cable that literally yanked me, and again, this is from my perspective as a child,
Yeah.
20, 30 feet back, thrown out, out of the window because the scene was supposed to is the guy who does a flying side kicks the main character out the window. He's supposed to hit the ground rolling. Well, they yanked me and I'm gone. I'm just through that window. I'm gone. I don't even know where I am. And I just remember just ugly crying. I'm talking about snot, tears, the whole nine
Oh.
yards. I'm just like, oh my god, and, I'm just sobbing and I'm sobbing. And then, and I remember hearing all the other, the executives going, okay, was that a good take? Was that a good take? Was it again? It wasn't again. And the director's like, okay, let's go. Oh my god. And, it was a one take, but that was my first day on set was, you know, here's the ropes, kid. Don't figure it out.
Literally, here's the ropes.
So, and
Wow.
some of the
That's
other sets I've been
intense.
on in Hong Kong weren't really that. I mean, I don't think so that exciting, but it's like what getting picked up, getting thrown out something. What was another one I had done? It was like a 3-on-1 3-on-1 fight. Get kicked, get bounced off a car, had to roll underneath the said car. You know, I didn't think it was anything, but yeah, here in the U.S. it's a little bit safer.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed spacing is a big thing in stunts in the U.S. Making sure
Yep.
that because of camera angle, you're not actually going to hit, even though it looks like it. It's definitely different, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Interesting.
so it's funny, but yeah, in the US, I typically go by the 6 to 8 inch rule. No punches, strikes, kicks, anything go closer than 6 to 8 inches. So that's really about gaining much distance. So
Mhm.
anytime you
Yeah.
watch an action scene, that's actually how far away they're moving from each other. So they're never ever close enough to hit each other for real, unless it's a specialty. And if it's a specialty, then there's a whole bunch of other things they're doing.
Okay. Does that
Mhm.
count for, like, slaps too?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
like I said, very rarely do in the US do they actually hit each other unless it's necessary or it's required. So, they always do their best to try to not make that happen because you have to think, as horrible as it sounds, you have to think almost like a business. If your main
Mhm.
actor is hurt, slapped, hit, punch, has a bruise, how does that affect for the rest of the scene? How does it affect for the rest of the shoot? And if he's injured severely, the whole thing comes to a grinding stop. And
Yeah.
that's a waste of money. So we try
Mhm.
to do a lot of things where you don't see that. There's space and ways we can move around it. And now accidents do happen. You get one guy who's a little
Yeah.
too gun ho, you get another guy who's, a little this or that, but accidents happen, but our job is to prevent said accidents.
Fair enough,
And we
fair
treat
enough. I was just thinking of, like, rom-com movies where you see the woman, like, slap a guy, and it's like, I know how it's cut, you don't necessarily see the skin-to-skin contact, but you hear it, and I know that's, like,
Yep.
sound effects and stuff too, but it makes me wonder, like, how often do they actually get to slap somebody?
Well, there's different ways you can actually slap someone without actually hurting them.
Sure, sure.
So there's different techniques for different things. So like if you have to show impact, you can actually get away with certain ways of moving your body in a way that doesn't hit, but it looks like it hit hard.
Okay,
And
okay.
and of course there are the occasional artists and actors who don't mind getting a little rough and they'll tell you, to go hit them as hard as they can so they can sell the effect.
Sure.
I I
I
wouldn't
believe that
recommend it,
too.
but there are those actors every now and then.
Yeah.
Sure, that's more method, I would think.
Call it what you like. I just look at my like, yo, man, that's a little nuts.
Fair enough, fair enough. So, what would you say is, like, the most time-consuming part of actually making a movie?
Hurry up and wait.
That makes
So
sense.
okay, so when you're on set, everything is happening all at once, but nothing at the same time. So it's a terminology that we all have in the industry is called hurry up and wait. And
Mhm.
it's because you gotta say, "You hurry up, hurry up, hurry up." Okay, wait, 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 we're not ready yet. Hurry up, hurry up. Oh, wait, 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 we're not ready yet. So there will be some days that they'll tell me that we're the first one up, but because of circumstances or something got miscommunicated, it'll be, all right, guys, hurry up and get ready, get dressed, get the full nines, but wait. And sometimes that waiting will be the whole day, 2 days, 3 days, a week. And or sometimes they'll be, right there. That's probably
Oof.
the most time consuming, on set. In
Now
the
how about
actuality,
off the
like,
set?
not from a perspective, post is also one of the longest things to do because they have so much to do, because they have to match cut everything we do, they have to make sure everything lines up, making sure it's, matching part of the story, matching part with the action that they do understand. So there's a lot of that, so that's why it takes so long for a movie to get made because, just because you shot it doesn't mean it's all good. Sometimes
Mm.
what if the punch doesn't look good? So now you have to sort through all the different takes to find that one punch. Okay, if there's not, then what do you do? Can you get away with it? Can you flip something around? Can you? So there's a lot of process in that. Then pre-production, there's wow, there's so much. Pre-production, starts as soon as the people agree on things, money gets dropped, and then sometimes the money just has to wait and sit there because other money isn't ready, and then it's more waiting. Again, the hurry up and wait from. So to me, that is the longest part of any of this is hurry up and wait.
That's
That's
gotta be
fair.
frustrating.
Hurry up and wait affects pre-production, post-production, and regular production. So you're gonna have that. So like me and Nate, we actually have a venture going into a film. How long has it been, Nate?
We've been working on it in total for about 2.5 years,
Hurry up
but
and
we're
wait.
about 6 months into actually getting investments, into the project.
Again, that's a hurry up and wait, and that
Mhm,
happens. So some of your best movies will have been sitting on this, cutting, on this fan on the floor, trying to get, attachments to it, and sometimes it
mhm,
works, sometimes doesn't, and that's why, like, things have already been predetermined, like in series. So you'll get all these series, get all the funding in it, and then they'll be hoping that they'll get picked up for the season 2, season 3 because they poured their entire budget into the first couple. And
mhm.
sometimes it works out for them, sometimes it doesn't. If they're smart, they'll have made a deal where it'll be a 3, 4 season deal, and then they can pick it up from there. but not everyone is as lucky as that. So it takes no, honestly, it's almost like a miracle that we get films made anyways, especially at the quality we do. It's just it's a
Yeah.
great miracle to see happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, as many films as I have sets have I has been on, which isn't anything compared to how many you have been on. It's crazy to see how many things go all the way to the end, and how few go all the way to the end, and how many just end up not reaching there.
Yep.
What would you say that percentage is, Nate, of like the films that end up getting, a little bit of investments or whatever, and then don't end up making it all the way through to post-production?
In my opinion, it's most of them.
Yeah, good 90, 80%.
Wow.
So you have to think like in terms like how big this is. It's just really it's like its own separate thing. So when you get the money, you have to then set up its own. It has to have its own bank account, not under a production
Yeah.
company. It has its own. Then you have a producer, executive producer, director, first AD, second AD. And I know I'm missing a few other departments on that one. Then from there, they start hiring other, like scripty, other department heads. Then once those department heads are settled, then they start casting. Once those are casted, then they start, and while they're casting, they're still looking for locations and insurance to cover said locations. Then they have to make sure they have enough money for however many people who are staying at said location, hotels, food. Then they have to go for costumes, weapons, props. So this is just a massive endeavor. So if the money's not there,
Mhm.
when something happens, it dies. I mean,
Wow.
I can't begin to tell you the number of times that I will be contacted for a project, and then I don't hear from them for 2 or 3 weeks, and I can only assume that the project either A moved on without me, or B, which is more likely one, they failed because they couldn't raise enough money.
Okay. That
But
makes
on the
sense.
flip side, if you don't do all of this footwork during raising money and before raising money, you don't have a cast or crew lined up, and then you've got this money sitting here going nowhere.
And then usually that's where your more horrifying projects come about.
Mm.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
so it all has to happen before anything happens, while nothing is happening.
Yeah, yeah. Like a hurry up and wait.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So, what would be like a deciding factor for you to sign on with a project?
Really? It's at the very first meeting with I take with the UPM, which is a unit production manager, or the line producer, line, LPM, and it's usually also with in most cases with the producers and directors. Once I, have that meeting, that's why because I want to gauge it off of how well can I get along with you? Are we gonna chill? Are we cool? Because the way you have to look at it is like a feature film is, we're filming 15 straight days in a row and that's considered a fast schedule, mind you,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
a month or maybe a month and a half. Can you tolerate that person for 15 to 30 days straight without you blowing up at them in close proximity, aka a hotel, high stress situation, etc.? Can you get along with them? And if you
Mhm.
can't, you should be working. Because could you imagine, okay, you're working with, you bring another co-host aside from Nate, and he's got that one aggravating, little tick that no matter how many times you tell him to stop, they don't stop. Instead, they may just make it worse because they can, and you gotta deal with them for that
Mm.
rest of the show, and there's nothing you can do
Mm.
to stop to get them to leave.
Mm.
Yeah, so
That would be a nightmare.
yeah, so for me, that's where it comes down to. It comes down to, the script can be silly, bad. It doesn't really matter because, the way I look at scripts and movies now is someone's entrusted me with their dream. Someone has entrusted me with their vision. Who am I to say this is a shit project or a bad project or a good project? That's not my place. That's disrespectful. You may have written like, hey, if you wrote something and it means the world to you, but it only has like one or two minor action sequence. I have no right to say that's a shitty script or a bad action. That's not right. So that's
Mhm.
how I go about it. So with that in mind, I'm now looking at who am I working with? Are these people
Mhm.
that I can get along with? Are these people that at the end of the day I can be like, yeah, man, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks. Or I know that I can have a blow up, come back and be like, hey, man, I'm sorry. It was a stressful situation. I think, things got lost. And then look at me and go, yeah, man, it's cool. It's whatever. We weren't thinking right. and then us just keep going. Those are the people I want to work with. I don't want to work with, you know, guy who holds it against me or a guy who doesn't get it or is just that that guy, you know?
Mhm.
That's sort of where my
Mm,
deciding factor is.
okay. Which I feel like is a very valid reason to decide whether or not to work on something, especially for that length of time too.
And yeah, especially considering a lot of on the stunt side, you'll have all or majority of the stunt crew in the same hotel or the same Airbnb. So
Yep.
then you've got like 20 guys all sharing the same house for like 10 days or 2 weeks or longer. If you can't get along with a few of them, that's going to be a really tough few weeks. You're going to be
Yeah,
around
Yeah.
like, so,
12.
like, Nate knows this one, but you don't get, like, my average, being home is maybe a week out of an entire month. I am
Oof.
Yeah, I and it's not a solid week, mind you. It's like 1 day here, 2 days here, 1 day over there, 3 days here, and that's it, and then I'm gone. And so most of the times, like my longest stint so far has been like a month and a half out in Vegas and Carson City, where I pretty much had to go out there. I had a roommate in our little hotel, 2 beds, 2 bed thing. So we had a little roommate. It wasn't bad. Next one over was in Vegas proper. They got us a swanky little like 3 4 bedroom apartment, but we're dealing with like 4 guys there, plus one guy is on the
Mhm.
couch. So there's just a lot of people that we had to get used to. And again,
Mhm.
that I'm just going at periods at time, so you got to be used to just picking up and going or going where the work is.
Sure, sure, absolutely, and I can only imagine what that's like, especially after working like a 14, 15-hour day, day in and
Exactly.
day out for weeks on end. That's gotta be exhausting, but I can
Yeah,
see where, the passion definitely comes into play, and that's why you do it, is because the
Yeah,
love of
you
the
gotta
game.
love it. You gotta love what you do.
absolutely.
You don't, you're talking the wrong place.
Yeah. The long
Absolutely.
days and then if you think about all of the many, many hours you're on the road traveling just to get from one
Oh,
job to the
yeah.
next,
Well, that's just me
and a
being a
lot of
sadist.
times yeah,
That's
well, yeah, yeah, you're over here like, "Oh, I've slept 3 hours. Let's drive for 10, take a nap for 2, and then get on set again."
so I assume someone told you that story. I'm gonna say that's
Yep.
either that was either Toby or Dan, but that one was an interesting one. So, Kate, what Nate is referring to was I had 3 jobs in California, and our my call time was 6 a.m.
Mhm.
for one of them. Another one is the night before at I want to say 9 p.m. And then we had another midday one picking back up at I want to say again at 7 p.m. So what I did was I drove to Cali, did my night shoot first, which was an overnighter, picked up, took a 2 hour nap, drove into town into another part of LA, got on set for my 6 a.m., finished that one at 6 p.m., took a had one of my guys drive so I could take a 30 minute to an hour nap, gone to the next set and worked all the way through the other overnight.
Yeesh.
And it's really not an uncommon thing to see in the industry either.
Yeah. Yeah, I've kind of heard stuff like that before, and that sounds, like, very similar to how, like, a lot of, healthcare workers do is, like, especially if they're doing, PRN work, they'll pick up a 12-hour shift,
Yep.
finish with that, take a quick nap, go do another 12-hour shift at a different facility. That's just whew,
Mhm.
you gotta be running on something in addition to caffeine to
Oh
be
no,
doing a lot of stuff like that.
I have I have ADHD very badly, which means caffeine puts me to
Okay.
sleep.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I can't have caffeine. Caffeine slows me down.
So pure
Oh.
fumes and passion.
Spite. I've heard a lot of
Right.
people run out of spite.
Yeah,
Yes.
usually it's spike because people tell me, "You can't do this, Gary." I'm just like, "Try me. Just try me."
Oh,
Yes.
man. So, like, an average day on set, let's say you get there, calls at 6 a.m. What's the first thing that you're doing?
If my call's at 6 a.m., then I'm there at 5:30. I'm at 5:30, I'm walking the grounds, I'm looking at my location, making sure all my equipment's there. Uh, might have a quick thing of breakfast with the guys just so we can reconnect. I normally don't like to eat in the mornings just because it just slows me down, but it doesn't mean I'm not gonna sit down, talk to my guys as they're eating. If we go over our day's plan, we go over everything that's needed. We do double checks on whatever the stunt may be. So if it's like a 5-on-1 fight scene, then we're looking at our location where we can hide mats, what's gonna happen here, who's gonna come where the camera's gonna be, that's how I start my day. Then after that, about 6 a.m. hits, I check in with the director, I check in with the producer, let them know where we're at. Then I ask them, do they want us on wardrobe? Do they not want us on wardrobe? What has changed? What hasn't changed since last night? Because sometimes they'll realize, oh, the dailies, they realize they missed a shot or they had to pick up a shot or something has changed or whatnot. So it's, however that may be. Then I will have my guys get dressed out if wardrobe is if we're clear for wardrobe, which really sucks because if we're dressed as goons, thugs, tactical, think of dressed in all black, full gear, full protective gear, and it's hot. Because normal times it
Mm,
is like we're just covered up. So I usually try to not have that until needed, but we will for whatever reason. I usually have one or two guys on standby for what just as a safety for weapons, for whatever, side stunt we may have. The director has come up on the spot because, he's like, ooh, we could add this and it'll make the scene like this, or it'll help lead us to the next scene, which I'm like, cool, okay. So yeah, and then if they're nice to us, we get to the fights, the stunts before lunch. If they're not nice to us, it's after lunch. And those are the roughest because, you know, you're sitting there
All
all
black in
day,
the
you're
heat.
hungry, but then as soon as we're done eating, the first thing up is stunt work. And doing stunts and fights on a full stomach is just really just painful.
Yeah, you're almost choking back your lunch when you're
Yep.
doing some of that.
So normally, sometimes like
oof.
what we've done is a lot of my guys they'll go to lunch, pack up the food, have it in little to go containers, put it in our trailer, and we spend most of lunch just rehearsing, going over what we're doing, going over the falls, the hits. I usually wait a little bit. The DP usually joins me afterwards, so that way he can get a set. He can start figuring out what the angles are, and then after lunch, the actor will usually be ready. And then we do the rehearsal with him now, which we call blocking, which means it's just, knowing where each of the camera has to hit what position, where everything has to be. Then lighting comes in, then we get started. And then, we'll do that for that 15 seconds of action you see on screen. That is worth probably about 5 to 6 hours worth of work on us.
Oof. Wow.
And so sometimes that carries us late into night and then and throughout this whole thing, I'm checking my guys, I'm checking with I'm checking the screen, make sure every hit looks good, checking with the director if that's what he wanted, if he's not, we have to change it, checking with the actor to make sure they're feeling comfortable, they're not tired, because the more tired you get, the more likelihood you're going to make a mistake. You're not moving as
Mhm,
fast, you're not as sharp, you're not on point. So getting hit or hitting someone is very easy now. So my
mhm.
entire day is more just risk management.
Okay. Wow, that's intense.
Mhm.
It's not as exciting as it seems.
Well, yeah, I mean, that goes back to the whole hurry up and wait thing, but that's still
Exactly.
it's a long time to be doing that for sure. So you have talked about a lot of different ways that you're kind of working around on set. You're working with your guys and the directors and whatnot. What would you say is like your favorite role that you play on set?
Oh, stunt coordinator, fight choreographer. I just love designing those fights. I have
Okay.
a penchant for making a little extra brutal. So a lot of people, when they watch it, they go, "Ooh!" If you ever get a chance, go watch. It's a action comedy. It's called The Handyman. I
Okay.
believe it's
It's
on
really
TV.
good.
And there's one I'm gonna give you a little bit of a spoiler, but I know you're
Okay.
all gonna have that same reaction. There's one fight in there, his name's Tyler Slaughter. He attacks our lead character, Kevin Caliber, amazing actor. You see him, you're like, yeah, that guy is definitely the hero. He comes out of nowhere, beats him down, and our hero, gets lucky, hits him in the face with a crowbar, puts him on the ground, takes the second row, puts it up underneath his tooth, and we pan up and we just see this motion and you hear this crunch about, and that face you just made right there,
Mhm.
that's who we're going for. So, it's
Mhm.
always
Oh.
garbage because I design stuff like that where people go, oh my God. And there's a whole bunch of other variations of that, not as brutal, but just as like wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely have, almost your entire career have had a very special touch in getting that little extra wow factor in stunts. And, being in it, you don't always see where that's exactly gonna come in, but then going back afterwards and watching it, it's like, "Whoa, now I get it."
Now there's another one where, it's a simple flip for us, but, we have one of our guys just charging Kevin Caliber. Kevin takes a look at him, ducks, sticks his arm between the guy's leg, and just flips him right over his shoulder. So the guy does, like, perfect 180 flip. He just slams onto the ground.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
But, yeah, please go watch a Handyman, enjoy it, rate it. So
Handyman.
you
It
it has
it's
quite
a
a bit
good
of
one.
fun comedies to it.
All right, I'm writing that one down for sure. Cause like I love horror movies and it's always the sound effects that get to me, especially with like some of those more intense actionable scenes. And so I was just like imagining the sound of that as you were describing it. I was like, "Oh, yeah, now I definitely have to go watch it."
One scene, simple scene, but it's a great scene.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, Now, there's a lot of scripting that goes on in a lot of this. Like you were talking about with the blocking and with making sure cameras know where they're supposed to be, where actors and stunt actors know where they're supposed to be. But how often is improv coming into play and changing the final product?
That really depends on the director and if he'll allow it or not, as I
Okay.
find. So, I have I've worked with some directors. It is to the dotted I, to the period, to the sentence. There is no breathing room. If and there is just it has to be done that way, and a lot of major budget films are like that because they're trying to hit a schedule, so they don't have room. Because understand like every time you come up with something improvised, something has to change, and you have to make sure it works. So
Hmm.
some of those guys they just have tolerance. I've been fortunate enough, where I've worked with directors who are like, yeah, let's have some fun here. Let's add a little something. So that's always
Sure.
great. I've worked with some actors who, for the life of them, can't stick to a script. They can only do what's the feel of what it is. What's it in spirit, but don't ask them to do 100% every single time on the line. They just, I'm sitting here going, Okay, okay, I guess we're doing something different, guys."
Yeah, yeah. Um, I've been on a couple sets where it was more scripted than the other, where it was more free form. Um, the free form definitely does take a lot longer to go through, but the end product, I mean, for that one, it was pretty silly, to be honest.
Yeah,
But I think silly
for
was kind of what they
zombies.
were going for. Actually, no. The one I was referring to was um, when we had Dan in the Luchador.
Oh, that was a pretty fun one too.
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot of improv
But
going.
you saw that one took a long time to make that work.
It really did. It took a lot more time, hours and hours extra from what they had planned.
So, Kate, you said you like horror movies, right?
Yeah.
You should look up Jurassic Thunder.
Okay. I'll write
Zombies.
that one down too.
So it's zombies, T-Rex, and post-apocalyptic war zone fights.
How would that work?
It's
Well,
great.
and you get to see Nate as a zombie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, and that one I actually get to tackle a dude and, like, rip him open. It was pretty dope.
Alright. Yeah, I've got that written down too. Zombies and T-Rexes, let's go.
Yep.
Go wrong
Zombies
with
and
it.
dinosaur. The way that the raptors were done was phenomenal in that one. I loved it. And the
Okay.
rope pulls and everything. Huge fan of that era of the stunt crew, though. A lot of hardworking individuals. We were just getting started, but, we had a lot of fun with it too.
Yep.
Um,
It was a good times.
it was. Now I do have to ask though, what do you think after all of this is the one thing that can either make or break a film from taking off
Uh, so that's a tricky question. Are you referring to make or break the film from taking off on a
on set?
production level? or make or break a film on a business level, like as in like in sales and whatnot? Because those are two. Because there's a lot of different answers that can affect different things.
Right. Let's go with you know what, let's break that down. What would be the one good or bad thing for business and the one good or bad thing for production?
For both of those, I can actually attitude for both of them.
Attitude for both. Okay.
Because if you're on my set and you have a lousy attitude, and I got to work with you for the next 15 days straight, that's hard. Because and then it's just going to start feeding into other areas. Like speaking candidly, on this last set I had worked on, I wasn't the coordinator. I was actually a stunt player, and there was a lot of miscommunication between us and the coordinator. And because there was so much miscommunication, it made us it made a really bad overall attitude amongst the entire crew. People were feeling lousy, people didn't want to get things done, people were snappy, which really just affected how we went forward. We were
Sure.
days behind, and that's just abysmal. We can't have that. For sales, the same thing. When I invite you guys out to a premiere, it's me hoping for you guys to have fun, but also have a good attitude about it, network and everything else, because that's, when people are there to buy said film, they can see that. If
Mhm.
you're going there with a lousy attitude and they see, oh, no one's having fun with this film, no one's going to want to. So attitude is probably the biggest one. Past that is your just basic common sense can make or break a film.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Knowing what to do and what to avoid can
It's
really
it's not even
really
that.
make a
I
difference.
mean, it's common sense. So, like, Kate. So, for example, if the director is under a lot of stress because he's got 10 pages of dialogue to do, and that's basically that's a good like 15-20 minutes of this, and it's a superly emotionally charged scene. Are you
Hmm.
going to talk to that director about something that's like just a little pish posh argument, or are you going to park it, let him deal with his thing first?
Yeah, no. I mean, okay, but I'm the kind of personality that absolutely hates confrontation of any kind whatsoever. So I'd probably like if avoid it at all possible, but if it wasn't avoidable, I'd be like tip tapping on his shoulder, be like, "I'm so sorry, but please, I
But
don't want
but
to bother you."
but But by the time you tip tap on his shoulder, you would also make sure he's not overwhelmed, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's a time
Yeah,
and a
so
place for stuff like that.
that's my point is there are a lot of people who don't have that common sense of to just wait.
Jeez.
Or the other
Okay.
one is they don't know how to follow a procedure or chain of command. So if I
Mm,
hired you, who
hmm.
that means I'm your boss, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a problem, who do you talk to? Me or the director?
You.
So that in case makes or breaks a lot of things because you will have newbies or people who don't understand and this is common sense. Hey guys, just slow it down, apply common sense, talk to your chain, who's ever next in chain command. Things will work out, but you guys gotta easy. But if
Mhm.
for those who don't know how to do that, that makes for a really rough set.
I can imagine. I
Believe
can
it.
imagine.
I know personally working with one or two people that really kind of got under my skin. I had to step back and just take a break and breathe a minute and to make sure I could make a good decision on what to do next instead of getting overwhelmed and going, above whoever, I was working for, which with this set was working under you. Um, and taking that time away to just breathe and calm down really did help a lot. And I think as a team, us coming together and doing that really helped, get us through that difficult film situation.
Yep.
Um,
So
and
yeah, so so yeah, I think attitude would probably be the biggest one on that one that can affect both.
Sounds good. And
Because
while we
Attitude and
reflect
common
on that,
sense.
let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Hey, real quick, this episode is brought to you by Dubby Energy. If you're the type of person who pulls late nights watching anime, gaming, or deep diving into some wiki lores, Dubby is basically made for you. It's powdered energy, zero sugar, zero crash, zero jitters. Just clean focus in whatever flavors you're into. And trust me, the flavors are anything but boring. Think like Japanese yuzu, s'mores, and tropical punch. I mean, they've got wild ones. One scoop, some cold water, and you're locked in. Check them out at w.gg and use our offer code CGR26 to get a 10% discount. Okay, back to the show.
And we're back.
Welcome
Alrighty.
back, everyone. So we've discussed a lot of stuff leading up to filming and during filming and a little bit of your background. So let's talk a little bit of post-production. So like after all of the filming in general has been completed, what would you say takes the longest during post out of all of the
Editing.
stuff? The editing?
Editing, oh my god, editing is the world's biggest nightmare, and I am so thankful I'm not a part of that. It is after, doing a few of my own little things, I can say editing is the worst because you have to try to explain what's in your head, what's on the script, and what you have, and try to make all 3 of those, like, work functionally, and then you have to get
Mhm.
whoever's doing the editing for you understand what you're trying to say between all those 3 things, and that's and it's yeah. And sometimes, it'll be at the moment you'll be like, "Oh my god, this was such a good shot, dude. This got this." Then you watch it, and you're like, "What the hell did I just do? Why? Do we have any more?" And then you realize you don't have enough footage, and then you have to go back and reshoot something again, and hope that everyone's schedule's open or someone hasn't changed their looks too drastically. It's so editing is definitely the pain.
Yeah,
Um,
I can see that. Kate and I both working on editing for the podcast. You know, just sitting here and having just one hour episode to work through and make sure we get any long pauses or anything and cut everything together. That's difficult. So I can't imagine how hard it is for a full
So
film.
yeah, so you have your editing, your VFX, your color grade, sound synchronization, sound, music, ambient music, final score, sweetening for voice. So, well, yeah, there's a whole bunch of that, and I'm like I said,
Mhm.
I'm just so happy I'm not part of that. I do not have the patience. I do not have the structural ability to sit there for hours to do that. I'm not that guy. I am that
Yeah,
guy.
that
Like the punch goes there, and then I'm gone.
See, that sounds better to me too, because it really does take a special person to be able to sit there for as long as it takes to even just their portion of editing when there's so
Right?
many different jobs.
So yeah, that to me is probably the worst in terms of the hurry and wait process. And then of course the other really bad part is it depends on what they're doing with the film afterwards. So like usually when the film's finished, you have a couple choices. You can put it for distribution. You can find a few places that will pick you up, and you can hope for a good deal. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It really depends. You can throw it on YouTube, but my personal opinion on YouTube is it's a glorified storage engine. You throw things up there and it stores up for the rest of your life, and it's up there forever. That's just me. It doesn't really help boost things unless you've already spent the time, years and years upon already cultivating that. So it doesn't really help if you're trying to make something. You can try to put it through the film festivals, but then if you do that, you're not allowed to advertise it or talk about it outside the film festivals or showcase it. So again, it's a thing of it just sits there and does nothing as it runs through the festivals. It's mostly for prestige. And yeah, will be some people from some network will might buy it, or you can hold on to it to FMA, the filmmakers of America, where you can again hope that someone buys it. So there's a lot of sit around and hope, or you can be proactive. And if you're proactive, you got to make sure you have a really, really good lawyer that can go through all those contracts for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of those contracts can be really difficult to navigate without a significant background in law. There is a lot of jobs in post production. There's a lot of jobs in pre production and during filming as well. What would you say for a full length film about on average how many people it takes to make one film come to fruition?
Ooh, are we on micro budget, low budget, high end
Uh,
budget? Like
we'll go medium budget, something you would see probably in film or in theaters, but no blockbuster kind of a thing.
we're probably talking anywhere to about 100, 200 people at any given point
So
on that level, maybe a little bit more, give or take. So like,
so
so
hundreds
like,
of people,
so like
years of
here
work.
in Albuquerque, we have a lot of film projects. So when Netflix came in and started, and set up shop, it literally gave this small town such a big boost, it made them into more of a medium-sized city, and it was able to employ a lot of those people. So there is a lot of ways, in a lot of ways, it can make or break a town if, you bring that in. I know for
Sure.
Denver, when they were doing a lot of, filming out there, it was bringing a lot of revenue for some of the smaller towns that they were filming, like, for Lone Ranger, like in Silverthorne and things. It gave them this huge boost of, tourism money, huge boost in filmmaker money, because you have to understand, like, we're only really working like 5 days a week, which means we have 2 days off. Well, if we're all in Silverthorne, for example, small little town in Colorado, what's the entire cast and crew and everyone else who's all of a sudden have an off day doing? That's a lot of our own pocket money being spent back in that
Mhm.
town.
Mhm.
So it can make or break a town. That's very easily. If we're talking like low budget, super low budget, something that was, made just because we can, still that's about 20 to 50 people. So
Mm.
you can use your imagination, like how much it just exponentially jumps as we get into the bigger
Yeah.
series.
Sure. And then so looking at massive epics like going back to like Lord of the Rings or Troy or something like that, it's easy to see how upwards of 800-900 people are working on a singular
Thousands.
film. Thousands. Okay,
Well, okay, first of all,
that's
Lord of the Rings
amazing.
is special. If we want to talk Lord of the Rings,
That's true.
we have to acknowledge that Lord of the
That's
Rings is special because Peter Jackson, the maniac that he is, understood the quest that he took. So the costume department probably had hundreds of people in that just one department alone because they're making chainmail, they're making actual leather armor, they're making actual metal. I mean, those are actual
Mhm.
real metal things that they're suiting these people out. So when you're watching those battle scenes, that's everyone in full metal gear and armor. So their
That's a
department's
lot of
huge.
work.
Then the armorers, I mean, you can't just have one guy handling all the weapons. He probably has a team of what, again, hundreds of people because that's a lot of a lot of everything. Then you
They
have
Yep.
the amount of PAs that you would need to be running around, making sure that things are getting done. Amount of everything. I mean, lighting, gaffing, electrical. I mean, all that it's just huge, monumental. So yeah, probably thousands. But again, that's he made a masterpiece, and that's
Yeah.
if you want a masterpiece, you got to get the right things for it.
Sure.
That's true. Like that one, for example, they had not just sets built, but entire full-sized villages built just
Yep.
for this movie. So yeah, it's easy to see where all of that money is going. It's not just being pocketed by, a couple of execs at the top. There's hundreds, sometimes thousands of people that have to get a regular paycheck from all of this.
Yep.
And that's not even including equipment costs or material costs or
And again,
travel costs.
we're not even looking at the post-production cost, because now they
Right.
have to
Mhm.
get all that data edited, how many teams of those guys are sitting there in front of computers, making things work.
Yep.
Mhm.
So it's easy to see why film is such an expensive investment, but it's also easy to see why so many people want, well, not so many, but why those that do invest in it want to, considering the not only the cultural significance that it can bring all across the world, but also seeing how much money some of these movies can bring in from box offices, from all kinds of different things. Like look at how Star Wars does with all of their merchandising. I mean,
That's a lot of money.
it's a lot of money, so it's easy to see how if you can get something iconic created, it can just generate a massive income
Yep.
for a lot of the people. Unfortunately, more at top than at the bottom, but creates lots of jobs as well.
It does create a lot of jobs, and you do have to be very highly skilled and proficient to get those. And
Mhm.
sadly, not a lot of people really talk about that.
That's
Mhm.
true. Would you care to elaborate a little bit on what that takes?
And so having a degree helps, but in our industry, it's actually more about who you know versus what you know.
Yeah.
So if you're a good costumer, that's great. You have a degree in medieval sewing and arts, that's cool, but they're not gonna look at you that way. They're gonna wanna look at what's your experience on set? Who do you know? Who can vouch for you? What can you do? How can you handle that pressure? Do you have a firm understanding of what you're doing? And can you be flexible to move within those bounds and etc.? So there's just a lot more work that goes into it. But once you get that and you get known as that, you just sort of climb that ladder really quickly. So yeah.
Sure. In your experience, how difficult is it to even get onto that ladder?
Yeah, good luck. The best way I can say for anyone who really wants to just give their hand and try at this is be a PA. Join a couple sets as a PA or as BG. You know, that's background. Those are your most base starting points. And from there, just start asking questions. Ask how you can get into this department. Who can you learn from what department? Some departments, will actually have courses for you to take, so you can learn how to do this. Sometimes, if they're nice, the heads of the departments will take you on as an apprenticeship, and then it follows that tradition. So there's actually a lot of traditional like little things that go on with sets. So, like, there's one little tradition that I was privy to know of, but I can't be a part of because I'm not an AD. But so an AD, for those who don't know, is a assistant director, and there's usually the first AD, second AD, and the second. And sometimes there might be a second third, and a third. But that's a whole different thing. And I know Kate's like, what is going on here? You sound like you're having a stroke.
A second. Haven't heard that
Well,
before.
but what that is, the first AD is stuck and glued to the director's hip. Their job is to maintain order on the set. They're the enforcer. So if we're talking like a mafioso type situation, our director, he's the Don. But then the AD, he's the enforcer. He's the guy that's gonna whack you if you don't listen.
Mhm.
So, and then we have the second AD, who's his assistant. He's the one who runs the numbers. He's the guy who makes sure everything is, set up for the next day. He's the one to make sure that everything is set. So he's the one who helps us with the call sheets, answers questions, coordinates between the PAs. So there's a lot of things to do. But one of the little traditions that like I said, I was privy to know of is that when the first AD thinks that the second AD has done a good job after end of the show, or believes someone has what it takes to take over as the first AD, he gives them his notebook. And they have these special little
Wow.
notebooks that cannot be bought in status. It can only be passed down a lineage. So it has all these guys' names like embossed in there. So when you bring out that little notebook, people know you learned from so and so. You're this person. So that way they preserve, certainly, so they have an expectation of how good you really are. And that
Oh,
speaks more in volumes why they hired you than anything else.
That's so cool.
that is a
That is
wonderful
so
tradition.
cool. And that really adds another layer too of filmmaking itself as a craft that you
Mhm,
need to learn. Like if you're
Mhm.
going to go into that field, you can't just like jump in and be like, "Hey, I'm so and so. I've got a BFA from NYU in acting." Like, no, you got to work your way through the ranks because it is a craft that you have to continuously work on and hone. And the notebook being that token of, that lineage. That is so cool. I didn't know
like,
that.
I'll be honest, I witnessed it twice in my entire lifetime. A
Whoa,
passing
okay.
notebook. So, that allows you the first time I had really no
Wow.
idea about it, and I just was like, "Oh, whatever." And then the second time I decided to ask about it because I was like, "What is going on? This is the second time I've ever seen this. No one seems to talk about this." And, the AD at that was gracious enough to explain to me, this is what it is and why this is so serious. People, yeah, you can go buy one, but no one's gonna know who you are. No one's gonna give you that credential. This is something that's passed
Mhm.
and earned, which means not only do you get that guy's, his respect, but you also get his past contacts. So if this guy, let's say
Mm,
the AD decides to retire, and people are hitting him up, he can go, no, 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 I'm retired, but I passed on my notebook and all my things to this guy. Hit him up. So it does keep this business alive and keeps a certain quality alive. So it does
mm,
do a really cool thing.
yeah,
That's really good.
wow.
So, with that in mind, and with physical things like this and the training that goes on, um, not just in school but continuously throughout person's career, how does AI change some of this? The rise of AI.
Um, it's just a headache. In my opinion, AI is definitely for people who are trying to cut a shortcut, trying to find a shortcut, trying to find ways not to use as much money, try to cheapskate things. Um, Me personally, I think there is a place for AI in the film industry, but I don't think it's in the way that people are currently envisioning it.
Okay.
I think AI is best used like a tool to do all the tedious, nitty-gritty, the, bullshit parts of the aspect of the job where, like, we have to find, oh, it's like, okay, we have this one film, we need to find all the parts that have this where the actor does this weird little tick in his face. Now, I don't know
Mm,
about you, but sitting there watching that over, that's annoying.
Yeah.
yeah.
I will gladly let AI take over and then do that little thing. Or if it's like was a copy and paste on on certain effects. That could take hours, especially if we're trying to make a water effect.
Mm,
Me personally, that could, let that handle it. I'm okay with, you know, to me, that's where it makes the most sense. Like using AI to do a thing that we don't want to do because it's just so tedious. So instead of
Sure.
taking
As like a
time,
CGI tool.
instead of letting it take up over our time, let's make it do all the grunt work while we, as humans, let's specialize. Let us be the artist. Let us have fun with the rest of it. That's what
Yeah.
I it belongs in. I've seen AI try to take over on fight sequences, and don't get me wrong, some of it is impressive in terms of like how far and how fast it's come along, but none of those fights really make me go, "Ooh, that's it," or me describing the scene to Kate, like how that little skull crack emoji. None of those things AI has ever done brought me close to going, "Oh my god." Most of them I go,
mm.
"Ugh, that's it's like whatever." So I would be okay using it in even in that sense as a like a previs just to show actors something that's simple, easy to do. But
Sure.
I'm gonna be
As
honest
a
with you,
tool
Nate.
to help blocking and such.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Nate. It's actually easier just for me to film it because for me to sit there, type all the commands in, wait for it to render and everything else, I could have done. I could just gone over there, just shot it real quick. So,
I mean, yeah, you do work very fast, and as long
so
as you have a crew that's used to working with you, honestly, it does go faster than most computers can render anyways.
I mean,
So,
the other part of me I'm okay with it is like making pitch decks. I will gladly use AI to make general images because sometimes, like when me and you are working on ours, we need to come up with a general look. Because if I say I want this actor, well, we can't get him. Then as me and you both have found out, the production sort of stops and goes, well, we can't get the actor. We don't know what to do. So it's
yep,
easy.
then it's like, "Oh, can you at least do this?"
So, like, using AI to make a general look for casting,
Sure.
I think is okay because then they will have, "Well, we need someone who looks something like this," and it's just a generic look that they can work off of. So, I could be
Sure.
okay with that, but past that, I don't really see it being as dominant or as scary as a lot of people think because they keep trying to apply it in the ways that it shouldn't. And if people are smart, they can apply it in, the ways I described, and I think it could be a great help.
I can kind of, attest a little bit to, like, the fight scene thing, like, I've seen people try and put out, like, TikToks and shorts and stuff of these AI scenes, and it looks sloppy. There's random extra limbs or all of a sudden this person disappears into part of an object and then reappears out a different side of the object and stuff like that. And it's like, well, this is not neat, but this is something.
Yep. Or the confused
um,
characters.
yeah. And I can see how utilizing it for the grunt work could really cut down even on time spent on little things, which could really be a big cost saver in the long run, for film budget. Now, what would you say, speaking of film budgets, would be like the most frustrating or challenging thing that you've come across with budgeting for a film?
Acquiring it, getting people to trust in your project and trust in you because now so here's one. This is so Kate, how much do you think it costs to make a B-level movie?
Um, well,
50,000, 35,000.
no. Because I was thinking I had recently found out that, like, for example, the Backrooms had a budget of 750,000. and that
I
they brought
crazy,
in
right?
a lot more than that, but the fact that they were running on a budget that low for a movie that was projected to be bigger than that was really surprising to me. So for like a B-level movie, I would say between 250 to $500,000.
See, and that's a B level. So how do you explain that to people who don't understand film that you need more money to raise a higher level project?
Explain to them how many people you have to pay
Okay,
to make a
but here's
film
the thing,
work.
but then they go, "Well, why can't we do this? Why can't?" Because remember, they're not part of the process. A lot of people don't understand the value of human of
Mhm.
human work.
Yeah.
This is that's the problem, because like when me and Nate first started, we're looking at a thing of 35,000 should be able to do most bare minimum things. That was what it was like in the very beginning. Now 35,000, the kid doesn't even make you a short film if you're lucky.
No, that doesn't even
Yeah.
get you in the door.
Yeah.
Well, how do you expect to now have this conversation with investors and people who, you're asking to put in money in an economy like what we're doing and we're currently in, and trust in you that they'll get their money back?
You gotta
And
be
it's,
really good at marketing.
well, here's the
You
thing. How
gotta
do you
be
market?
the king
We
of
can't even
people
market it.
person.
We can't do pre-sales. We can't do pre-marketing. We can't do any of that sort. So how do you get them to believe in you?
I don't know, cause like, me, I would understand the value of making art, especially in an economy like this, knowing, a little bit of history of film and whatever that I do, and I am not an expert by any means, and I've never worked in film. I just have an appreciation for the industry. And so taking that into consideration for someone who doesn't understand that, it would be really difficult to push that forward and say like, "Hey, this is a project. This is, this thing that we're trying to work on with this amount of people, with this amount of budget, and we think it's going to do pretty well. We just need the help getting there." Yeah, I can see how that would be a really, really difficult thing to do, especially
Then of
when
course,
nobody wants to invest in stuff like that right now.
yep. And then you have to
Um,
take into account for algorithms and what people think the algorithm wants. So like one of the biggest problems that me and Nate hit was the script I wrote is 90% Asian based. I
Mm.
was told after they acquired my script that it needed to be reversed. It needs to be 10% Asian based and the rest had to be Caucasian because that was who would be interested in watching a film.
Mm.
we
So
did get that decision or that request overturned, thank goodness. But it took
so
a
Okay, good.
lot of it took months and months of convincing to get
So
it to
how do
happen.
you now, and mind you, these guys are business people, so they're looking at models, or looking at things that make sense that generate money. So for
Mhm.
them, on top of saying, "Hey, we're gonna guarantee your money back," but then they're going, "Well, according to our model, the only way you can guarantee our money back is if you hire these types of people that with this types of
Yeah.
look or with this type of." So it's a very so now you just limit yourself even more. So yeah, getting money is definitely I think the hardest one because once you get going, it's despite the difficulties, it is easier. But getting people to give you that initial source and trust in you is the hardest. But that's just me though.
Yeah. I can
And
absolutely imagine. You gotta have, like, a really high charisma score in order to get some of those investors to
You gotta get
believe in
that
stuff
20.
like that. Yeah.
yep, yep, you got to get that nat 20. That's exactly right.
Oh, man.
And you gotta hope
Um,
that they can challenge your nat 20.
yeah.
Yeah,
No kidding. So
if they
Gary,
pass that cycle.
what advice would you give to someone who's wanting to
Mhm.
start working in the film industry?
Despite the hurdles, despite the craziness, just do it. Do it for the passion, do it for the love, do it because it is something you genuinely want. Don't let
Mm,
anyone else tell you there's a right way and the wrong way because as me and they have both learned, there is no such thing as a right way and a wrong way. There is a expected way, there is a procedural way, but it's not necessarily right or wrong because as we found out, you could have gone to school your entire life, worked your way up to finally be a director, only to get something. But then you could be that 1 in 10 guy who picked up a camera and then all of a sudden you're making nothing but bangers like Christopher Nolan. Believe it or not,
Mhm.
that guy
mhm,
didn't he never went to school for it. He just picked up a camera and did it. Steven
mhm.
Spielberg, all these guys, they just did it because they loved, it was for the passion of the game. They just loved what they did. So if someone wants to get into film and they don't necessarily know how, just start making stuff. Just make and just have fun with it. Don't let anyone put them down. If they want to be serious in terms of like a profession, go to a place that has that has lots of film work. Get yourself on as a PA and just ask questions. Ask questions and learn, and don't get jaded. Don't get cynical.
Mm.
It's easy, but don't
Mhm.
do that. You know, that would be my best advice. Past that, depending on the field you're in, just find those people, find your tribe.
Mm. I like
Yep.
that.
Getting that support, especially on your low days when you've been to one audition after another, after another, after another, and you're just not hearing back from anybody.
Oh,
You know, it gets
so yeah,
tough.
honestly, actors probably have the thickest skin I know because they hear
Mm.
rejection almost every single day. Not once, not
Mhm.
twice, sometimes about 4 or 5 times because they're auditioning and they have to handle that no. And oof, yeah, you're gonna need people to help bring you up from that.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, can you give us a little bit of insight as to what big projects you are currently working on, and where viewers can find some of your previous work?
Wow. Let's see. I just finished one in Colorado. That one's called Devil in the Trunk, and it was a fun little cursed movie. With the title Devil in the Trunk, everything that could go wrong did go wrong in the most benign way possible. Not even maliciously, benign. So we're talking about like one of the first days on set, we're out in the middle of nowhere and people got lost because we're out in the middle of nowhere. So we got delayed.
Oh.
Next day on set, we were in this small town that only had one auto garage, but the whole thing was made of like the steel paneling. And
Mhm.
at lunch, they're like, "Hey guys, be careful! Lightning watch!" Blah blah blah. I'm like, "Cool, okay, whatever." So we're inside, and then it starts hailing, and it's hailing so loud on them against this metal that we can't even shoot anything. So we're just sitting there going, "Okay." Um, we had another one. We're about to do this driving scene. It rains, so we can't even so we have to wait an extra hour for this to dry. It's Colorado. We have to hit Abner with a car. Both cars die in the weirdest way possible. Or what was another one? We were shooting out in a bar scene. The first couple days, the patrons loved us. The bar owners loved us. We're all having fun. Third day, all of a sudden the patrons want to start a fist fight with the actors. Like I said, the most benign way of causing problems and was causing problems. So
Just
Wow.
off the wall randomness.
yep. And then I just finished something that was actually a 2-day pickup. It was called Maddie St. Grace. It's a story about a country singer who hit her heyday, but now she wants to try to do a revival act and try to bring her back to the tops. But she's gotta work with a atheist producer and director, and they're just butting heads on a religious point of view. We had a really fun scene where one of my guys jumped the fence and was acting like one of those overzealous fans who goes, "I touched her," and then foams at the mouth and collapses. Currently working on something called Demon Code. It like honestly it reminds me of like those 1980, like late 80s, early 90s demon monster movies with a full costume and prosthetics. So
Oh, sure, sure, like Blood Rain and stuff like that.
yeah, I was thinking more like Hellraiser, but yeah.
Oh, sure, sure, sure.
Oh, nice.
And then later this week, we're doing a little action piece actually for a film competition here in New Mexico. So yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, that's all within this. So Kate, that's all within this past 2 weeks that I've listed.
Wow.
Yeah, just a little busy.
A
A
little
little
bit.
bit.
Some of the past works where you can see them. Surprisingly, a good amount of my stuff you can actually see on Tubi. So, Handyman, like I said to you guys, then you can watch Bang Bang Betty 1 and Bang Bang Betty 2, Valerie's Revenge. That one's actually probably the better of the two, personally. You can check that on Tubi. Uh, was it Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch? Is also on Tubi. Sundance versus Butch Cassidy versus Sundance, also on there. That was actually one of my first westerns I got to work on, so that was a good tick off my thing. So yeah.
Very cool.
Well, thank
Very
you
cool.
so much for joining us.
Yeah,
It's been an absolute pleasure hearing about you and about the grit and the creativity that it takes just to make something happen. And to all of our listeners out there too, if you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Chaotic Good Radio. Leave us a review. Yeah, and check out the show notes to see Gary's latest stuff. We'll link everything in the notes below.
for sure. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.